Transhumanism Lecture 16. We're starting to jump to look at future events now, but first, let's have a look at what happened over the last 2 days. Um, uh, the big news is still about OpenAI and their new model, talking about the Spud model, things like that. Everyone's doing it. I find this article interesting from the Neuron. You can see the article's called OpenAI Kills Sora, its video generation platform, and prepares the Spud model. And the introduction says it asks this question: is anyone else bored of talking about AI? And then down at the bottom it says, meanwhile, OpenAI decided to announce 14 things on Tuesday. So, yeah, we're not bored yet. So, yeah, OpenAI just announced tons of things over the past few days. They killed off Sora. They talked about their new model, GPT-6, called Spud. Sam Altman kind of changed jobs to running the data centers and things, all sorts of stuff. ARM unveiled its first ever chip. It used to license designs. So ARM is now producing, the company ARM is now producing chips. Talk about that in a minute. Uh, the judge is siding with Anthropic against the Pentagon, which is going to get a lot more interesting, I think, when they start suing the government. Anthropic announced they can now control Macintosh computers while you're away, and you can run tasks from your phone as well. Yeah, Anthropic are linking into. I didn't put that up actually. I should have. Let me just open that. I forgot about these ones. I had some new. Let me. I missed a few things here. Let me just pull them up. So let me show you some of those things together that are going on. Uh, so OpenAI finally closed its funding round. I told you it got $100 billion. It closed it at 122 billion. OpenAI is releasing so much information at the moment because they're about to go public. Um, they're going to open themselves up on the stock market. So OpenAI are currently trying to get a lot of hype about all their stuff going on at the moment. Um, Google and Anthropic have both announced this week more connections to Android so that you can control more AI functions from Android phones. Google announced this, Anthropic announced it this week as well. A sector snapshot of funding. Venture capital has spent as much in the first 3 months of 2026 as they did in the whole of 2025 on AI. So we're on track to spend over 4 times as much on AI this year as we did last year, and it was over $1.5 trillion last year. Said ARM is now making its own chips. The chip design firm, Meta, OpenAI have already pre-ordered bunches of these, most of them. And the interesting thing is this chip is called the ARM AGI CPU, the chip that will get you to artificial general intelligence, which is the next thing we're talking about on this course. Anthropic, as I said, OpenAI announced they have their Spud on. Anthropic had a code leak this week. Some of their code for their Claude model got released out on the internet, and they've been trying to shut that down. But one of the things it shows is that they have a new model that they're nearly ready to release, which they claim is a step change in capabilities. The same as OpenAI are claiming about their Spud model. So both Anthropic, the two big ones, OpenAI and Anthropic, are both claiming that their next models will be huge jumps in development. Um, this article came out yesterday. No, today, this morning actually. This article came out this morning, just about the job market and um, that so many people have predicted that jobs will change, and uh, unfortunately, the first people who are getting hit are the people who are building the AI models, and all the tech workers are getting hit first. So it's kind of an interesting article from the Times today. Uh, and China announced they opened this factory. Um, this factory makes robots, and it makes a humanoid robot every 30,000 robots per year. It went into production this week. Quite amazing. And of course, the factory is all robotic. And Unitree, which is the biggest robotic manufacturer in the world, is going public as well, having an IPO just like OpenAI. So they're going to uh, so expect their company to grow a lot as well. OpenAI and this Unitree are companies to watch right now because they're both going public. They'll get tons more money, and we'll see what they do with it after they've gone public. All right, so that's what happened in the last 2 days. Um, it's interesting because lots of that relates to what we're going to be talking about today. So, um, if you go on Brightspace, you'll see that the next module is up. AGI, superintelligence, and the singularity. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next 2 or 3 lectures, maybe 4. AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. And today you'll see that there are 5 sections in this. Only 2 of them are available to you. I haven't, as I said, I have to rewrite everything every year. I haven't rewritten the AGI and the singularity one yet. And the bottom one, the possible AI futures, is information for a seminar session we'll be doing. Okay? So I'll put that up. That's information for you to look at for a seminar, for a class discussion or online discussion. But I'll tell you about that when we get to it. What we're going to do today is introduce, as I said about this course, we started with the past and definitions and all the theory and the philosophy. For the past couple of weeks, we've looked at where we are right now, teaching you about how LLMs work, transformer models, diffusion models, and agents, bringing you up to date with agents. And to be honest, we're now starting to look at what's going to happen in the future because we hopefully all this information we've got so far will allow us to start to predict what's happening in the future. And this is where all my tech bulletins come in, the things I'm showing you. I'm trying to show you what's developing right now so that we can see what's coming along in the future. Um, so that's what we're going to do today. So the first page is an introduction to your AI future. And on this page, there are 3 videos. You'll see up at the start, it says Artificial intelligence has been changing our life for decades, but never has AI felt more ubiquitous than now. And more important, it seems that not a week passes without another AI system overcoming an unprecedented hurdle or outperforming humans at something. So now we've got to start thinking about how will the future of AI play out for humans? We've got to start thinking about that. That's what this course is about. So I've got three videos that you can watch. You can watch the whole videos. I'm going to only show you a couple of clips from each video in this class. As always, there's a worksheet, worksheet 8. Um, I haven't put this one up online yet. I'll put it up later today. So it should be up by the time those of you online see this video. But the first question, question 1, is the one for you to start on now. What you have to do, which is similar to what you've done before in the past, I want you to make notes on the big issues. What are the big things being talked about here? And question 2 is I want you then to rank those issues and put the most important one you think is the most important at the top. And I want you to tell me why it's the most important. Notice that question 2 asks grad students to tells you, I expect a little bit extra from you here with your justifications. Do some extra research on the topics, okay? But so question 1, you need to be filling out right now as I go through this, okay? So the first video is from a TV show on Prime, and it's called The Giant Beast That Is the Global Economy. Any of you seen this or heard of it? It was a big show when it came out, but it came out 4 years ago, which in this timeline is a lifetime ago, really. It's massively out of date. But they have, it's a very interesting show. It's hosted by a guy called Cal Penn, who's a comedian, an actor. He was in the Harold and Kumar movies, you may have seen those, or he was in the TV show House. But he's an interesting character because he's also a writer, a journalist, and he worked for the government in the White House. So he's quite an interesting chap. And he's presenting this series about the economy, the world economy. The first episode, Amazon gave him a suitcase with $1 million in cash in it. And what he had to do was find out how to launder that money so he could spend it. So he spent the whole episode flying around the world, working out how to launder money so that he could spend this money. And he ended up buying a villa in Spain with it. He managed to successfully launder the money and buy a villa in Spain. Um, Episode 3, if you get chance, is absolutely amazing. I know it doesn't sound it. It's about the rubber industry, how the rubber industry works. And honestly, it's fascinating. I know it doesn't sound it, but it's probably the best episode, the one on rubber. But episode 2 is about artificial intelligence, and that's the one we're going to watch a couple of clips of. So let's start watching a couple of clips of this.
I'm here on Wall Street, where it all started. On May 6th, 2010, at 2:45 p.m., one guy sitting in his parents' house way over in London unleashed an algorithm back here on the New York Stock Exchange with $1 billion sell order. The plan was to spoof the market and cancel the order before it was completed. But before that could happen, the rest of the world's automated stock trading bots also started selling, setting off a chain reaction that cratered the market. That's nearly as big as the drop that kicked off the Great Depression. What the heck is going on down here? I don't know. There is fear in this market. Cancel the cruise. Switch your kids to public school. It's a flash crash, people. Well, 36 minutes later, the market rebounded. But the flash crash of 2010 marked the first time humans got a visceral, firsthand, anus-puckering glimpse of how AI was going to take over our financial system. And you should see where it is now. It's why I'm here in India, foraging for wild. All right. So he goes on. So this show is about the um, is about how AI affects the economy. So it's specifically more about money, but let's have a look. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to jump. That was just to introduce it. I'm going to show you an interview with a guy called Andrew McAfee. Andrew McAfee is a professor and world expert on how technology influences economies. So he's talking about AI as a technology and its potential impact. So let's have a look at Andrew McAfee. Where is he? That's him. This is where we want to be, I think. All right. Okay. So what we see there is what you see there is a number of things he talked about. AI, top three things that will change human society ever. In the whole of human society, the things that made the biggest impacts on civilization, AI's up there with electricity and steam power. This idea that we're replacing mental capacity instead of physical capacity, we've talked about before, that AI is about to do this. And that, yeah, there's going to be good things that happen and bad things. You know, hopefully we can guide this towards more of the good things than the bad things. What we're going to do now is we're going to see a video, and we're going to talk with this guy. We're going to watch some interviews with this guy, a couple of videos with him. Who is he? This is Nick Bostrom. Nick Bostrom is one of the world's most famous transhumanists. Now we're getting into the future stuff. We're going to start bumping up against more of these people. He was one of the founders of Humanity Plus, the current transhumanist organization. So we're going to watch Cal Penn interview him, and then we're going to watch a couple of videos of him talking about what's going to happen with AI. Although transhumanism covers a whole bunch of future technologies, this class we're focusing on AI, so we're mainly showing him talking about AI. Nick Bostrom is from Sweden. He has degrees in theoretical physics, computational neuroscience, logic, and artificial intelligence, as well as philosophy and a PhD in philosophy. So he's one of the most quoted philosophers in the world. He's a crazy intelligent bloke. So we're going to watch a couple of videos of him in this class. But first, let's watch Cal Penn talk to him. I must warn you about Nick Bostrom. He's very dry, and I don't think the man's ever laughed in his life. You know, he's a very serious gentleman, but we'll. Okay, so let's watch Cal Penn talking to Nick Bostrom. Where do we start this one? 17. Yeah.
Mhm. There we are. What we're seeing here is what I've talked about multiple times already, this kind of pub AI question that you get. It's kind of the things you get asked in bars or by your family. When people find out you're studying this sort of thing, they always ask you, will robots take over the world? And it's kind of a stupid question. It's hard to answer because it's much more complex than one question like that. So let's watch. Um, so what I want to do now is show you uh, a few bits of data about what Andrew McAfee was talking about what's happened in the world and what's happening in the world right now, so you can see what's going on. Uh, and then we'll watch Nick Bostrom talk about, in a much better way than that interview, about the issues we may have. All right, so we're going to start with this article from Our World in Data. And what I want to do here, this has this infographic about the long-term timeline of technology. So let's have a look at this infographic. It starts down here, and in the red on the right here, it says each spiral represents 200,000 years. So we've got the first musical instrument 43,000 years ago. And every time we go around the spiral is 2,000 years. Oh, we're not there. That bit in the middle is the first tool use 3.4 million years ago. A million years ago, we get fire. 300,000 years ago, we've got our species appears, Homo sapiens, bows and arrows, a musical instrument. We don't get beds till 200,000 years ago. But if we jump to 10,000 years ago, or 10,000 BC, we've got the agricultural revolution. Suddenly, now each line is 1,000 years. Things are happening a lot faster. 6,000 years later, we hit the end of the Stone Age and the Bronze Age begins. 1,000 years later, we hit the Iron Age. And just before year zero, we invent paper. 1,000 years later, we've got windmills and gunpowder. So we're at the year 1000. And then we suddenly hit glasses, the printing press, the microscope. And as McAfee said, this is a visualization of what Andrew McAfee said. We hit this point at 1800 where we suddenly have steam power, the first vaccine and steam power. We then have photography, the telegraph. For now, the timeline is stretched out a lot more. This is just 100 years. Notice that up until 1870, people only lived on average to be 30 years old. That's only 150 years ago. And then just after the 1900s, we're flying the first plane. 70 years later, or 65 years later, we're landing on the moon. And so this is where we are now. And at some point, we're going to hit this human level intelligence. For the first time ever in this class, I actually generated some graphics for the class. This is an infographic I built using Gemini Canvas for this class to show the duration of each epoch. I've had Gemini building some graphics for the class. I actually had quite a bit of fun doing this. It's really easy. So look at this. We've got the Renaissance. Um, so we're starting at the year 1400, and you can see we've got 350 years where the printing press came in. We then got the industrial era where we get steam power. We got the machine era. And right at the end, in the top 9%, in 10% of the chart here, we've got the computer age. And this little sliver here is where we are now, the red sliver. So from 1970 to 2026, we've got the information age, which is computers, internet, smartphones, and we've just entered the what we call the AI era. We're 4 years into this with generative intelligence. The transformer model was invented 7 years ago, but remember what I said about tipping points. The tipping point was 2022. So this is where we are now. This visualizes over 600, the same chart shown as a line graph, 626 years of progress. This is the rate of technological change. And as Andrew McAfee said, for hundreds of years it was flat, even after the invention of the printing press. That took a long time to have an impact. We suddenly hit the steam engine here at 1800, and this chart starts to go exponential. We got electricity coming in just before the 1900s. Then we've got the internet coming in here. By the time we get to the red bit, the line is vertical. That's where we are now. We're in an almost vertical. They're calling it the singularity point. The last 48 months, two to 3 years. The curve has broken the traditional scale. We're now optimizing intelligence at the speed of silicon. So the pace of technological development has got so fast right now that this is why, when it comes to predicting the future, it becomes more and more uncertain. This is a nice little graph that shows it in a different way, the long wave cycles of innovation. What this chart shows is that from, again, where we started on this curve around the 1800s, they put it in 6 waves. Now, when you put it like this, it doesn't look as bad. You have a 60-year wave, a 55-year wave, 50, 40, 30, 25. So it doesn't seem like the waves are getting that much shorter, that much quicker. But what you have to look at is the height of the wave, which is the speed of technological process development. And in the 6th wave, you can see the 5th wave of computer technology here. The speed of development was massively fast, and now the 6th wave is accelerating even faster. The road to ubiquity getting shorter, we've talked about this already. From when the first airline came out until 50 million people used a plane, took 64 years. With automobiles, it took 62 years. Telephone, electricity, still about 40, 50 years. Credit cards were 30 years. Television, 20. Computers were 14. Cell phones, 12. Took 12 years for smartphones to get 50 million users. Internet, 7 years. Facebook, 4 years. Pokemon Go, 19 days. That was a bit of an anomaly. Netflix took about 6 years to get 50 million users. ChatGPT got 1 million users in 5 days, 50 million users in 4 months. So that's the speed, this what we call this road to ubiquity. Looking at benchmarks. So the AI systems in particular, we're interested in AI in this class. How are they performing? This 0 level, this horizontal line, is human capabilities or human performance. Handwriting recognition. We kind of passed human performance back in 2013-14. Recognizing images as good as a human. We passed that in 2015. Well, computers are doing that way better than us now. Speech recognition took a little bit longer. We didn't really hit it properly until we got the transformer model. We started hitting it around 2016-17. Reading comprehension and language understanding, transformer models. Look at those almost vertical lines. As soon as we got the LLMs, reading and language understanding. AI systems 6 years ago were performing better than humans in all these areas. AI investment surge. This is another graphic I created by AI for you. These are all available on Brightspace, by the way. So if you look at how much money has been invested in AI over the past 22 years, between 2004 and 2009, about $5 billion was spent. 2010 to 2014, 20 billion. 2015 to 2019, 30. Remember, the tipping point was in 2022, but still we're starting to hit this exponential graph, 300 billion between 20 and 24. Just in 2025, we spent 1.5 trillion. And already so far in 2026, we spent over $2 trillion. So the acceleration factor of money being invested in this technology is insane. And hopefully you've seen that in the things I keep showing you. So what this means when we try to predict the future is that at the moment, by our best estimate, if you look at these charts and you look at how much progress the human civilization has made, we are now making decades of progress every month. What used to take a decade of human progress, we now make in a month. Ray Kurzweil and others have calculated this out, that basically this century, this 100 years, the 21st century, we are going to make 20,000 years of human progress in one century. 20,000 years of progress this century. And that's at the current rate of AI acceleration. But the rate of AI acceleration is increasing, so we're likely to actually way go past that. But that's at the current rate. So we've got this technology that's going to have this huge impact on the economy, and we can see how this curve is working and where we are just jumping. We're looking at carrying on projecting that line and trying to see what's coming. Okay, any questions or comments so far? All okay. All right. So we're going to watch a video now of our friend Nick Bostrom, and we're going to have him. This is a TED Talk, and we're going to watch two little bits of this. Just one thing you may need to know before we watch it. He mentions someone called Ed Witten. If you don't know who Ed Witten is a famous theoretical physicist who invented string theory. Now, this video is 10 years old, so you would think it's massively out of date, but Nick Bostrom's ideas about what's going to happen have not gone out of date. So he's still the guy who invented who started all these conversations. He's the guy who came up with all the theories, started these conversations, and is still the most knowledgeable about it. So this is one of his seminal TED Talks where he talks about what's going to happen over the next 100 years or so and specifically with AI. So we're going to watch two little bits of this. It's really annoying, that thing.
I work with a bunch of mathematicians, philosophers, and computer scientists, and we sit around and think about the future of machine intelligence, among other things. Some people think that some of these things are sort of science fiction-y.
Well, I just want to point out that in this talk, Nick Bostrom tries to tell a joke. Someone's obviously told him to put this in and try to do it, and because he's not very good at it. So it's quite funny watching him try and tell a joke. It's obviously not his thing. Anyway.
Far out there, crazy. But I like to say, okay, let's look at the modern human condition. This is the normal way for things to be. But if we think about it, we're actually recently arrived guests on this planet. The human species, well, like, think about if the world was created, Earth was created 1 year ago. The human species then would be 10 minutes old. The industrial era started 2 seconds ago. Another way to look at this, if you think of world GDP over the last 10,000 years, I've actually taken the trouble to plot this for you in a graph. It looks like this. It's a curious shape for a normal condition. I sure wouldn't want to sit on it. Now, let's ask ourselves, what is the cause of this current anomaly? Some people would say it's technology. Now, it's true. Technology has accumulated through human history. And right now, technology advances extremely rapidly. That is the proximate cause. That's why we are currently so very productive. But I like to think back further to the ultimate cause. Look at these two highly distinguished gentlemen. We have Kanzi. He's mastered 200 lexical tokens, an incredible feat.
Notice he uses the word tokens again. We talked about that in AI. A token is a word that you put in an AI system. So Kanzi's mastered 200 words.
And Ed Witten unleashed the second superstring revolution. If we look under the hood, this is what we find. Basically the same thing, right? One is a little larger. It maybe also has a few tricks in the exact way it's wired.
So what we've got is we've got he's saying, yes, we can look at things the way I showed you and McAfee showed you, where you look at these exponential graphs of technological advancement. But he says, don't think of it that way. Think about brains instead. So now he's going to talk about brains. But honestly, this whole video is worth watching, but we don't have time to watch all of it. So we're going to jump to the important bit, which is where he starts talking about the intelligence explosion with AI and what this means for humans in the future.
Now, most people, when they think about what is smart and what is dumb, I think have in mind a picture roughly like this. So at one end, we have sort of the village idiot. And then far over at the other side, we have Ed Witten, or Albert Einstein, or whoever your favorite sort of guru is. But I think that from the point of view of artificial intelligence, the true picture is actually probably more like this. AI starts out at this point here, at zero intelligence, and then after many, many years of really hard work, maybe eventually we get to mouse-level artificial intelligence, something that can navigate cluttered environments as well as a mouse can. And then, after many, many more years of really hard work, lots of investment, maybe eventually we get to chimpanzee-level artificial intelligence. And then, after even more years of really, really hard work, we get to village idiot artificial intelligence. And a few moments later, we are beyond Ed Witten. The train doesn't stop at Humanville Station. It's likely rather to swoosh right by. Now, this has profound implications, particularly when it comes to questions of power. For example, chimpanzees are strong. Like pound for pound, a chimpanzee is about twice as strong as a fit human male. And yet, the fate of Kanzi and his pals now depends a lot more on what we humans do than on what the chimpanzees do themselves. Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does. Think about it. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make. The machines will then be better at inventing than we are, and they'll be doing so on digital timescales. What this means is basically a telescoping of the future. So think of all the crazy technologies that you could have imagined maybe humans could have developed in the fullness of time. So cures for aging, space colonization, self-replicating nanobots, or uploading of minds into computers. All kinds of science fiction stuff that's nevertheless consistent with the laws of physics. All of this, a superintelligence could develop, and possibly quite rapidly. Now, a superintelligence with such technological maturity would be extremely powerful. And at least in some scenarios, it would be able to get what it wants. We would then have a future that would be shaped by the preferences of this AI. Now, a good question is, what are those preferences? Here it gets trickier. To make
So there's a lot to unpack in that, a lot of things going on he's talking about. Notice he's talking mainly about intelligence. He's not mentioned consciousness. He's not said these machines are alive. They are intelligent. But we've had this discussion before. You could say that a thermostat is intelligent about getting the temperature right. A chess machine is intelligent at playing chess. Intelligence is a very slippery continuum line and hard to define. So remember, this was 10 years ago, before transformer models. We now have machines that can answer over 90% accuracy PhD level questions. We have machines that are 50% of the way to answering the hardest questions that humans can actually set, that most humans can't get a single one of them right. So we already, in some ways, have machines that are more intelligent than us. So think of where we are on this line. We've said that we have language understanding now in these models. We have understanding in these models. We're not saying we've got consciousness, but we have understanding. We have intelligence, we have understanding. So we are, if we're talking about the future, we only hit this tipping point 4 years ago, 2022, with LLMs. And here we are in 2026, within a year or two. If we're not there yet, we are going to be past his kind of definition of where an LLM is as intelligent as the top theoretical physicist. In many ways, LLMs are already better than the top theoretical physicist. They've read every physics paper in the world. So this is where we are right now. And he ended with a very interesting point, this idea. He threw this out there. Once you have super intelligence, it's going to maybe be able to get what it wants, which throws us back to philosophy. To get what you want, you have to want something. You have to have a goal. You have to have intentionality. So this is where he's slipping into discussing consciousness in some ways, saying the machines may decide to get what they want, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But um, but this is our future right now. We are, as he said, the train doesn't stop at Humanville, and we are literally passing through Humanville like right now. The train's been coming up, and it's hit Humanville, and it's going past it. Any comments or questions before I show you another Nick Bostrom video? All right. So this is a bit of a longer video. We're going to watch the whole of this one. This one is from 2-3 years ago, I think. Again, this is from a series called Big Think, where some of the top scientists in the world talk about each video is about one idea. So this is Nick Bostrom 2 or 3 years ago talking about the future of AI. He talks in a very simple, it's for the general public, so he puts it in very simplistic terms, but it's a nice little video.
In this century, probably, we will be building this hugely consequential thing, which is the first general intelligence that will be smarter than humans. This involves an enormous responsibility. This is like maybe the most important thing that our species will ever have done on this planet.
So, Nick Bostrom saying that this will be the most important thing humans have ever done on this planet. Just like McAfee, he's putting it up above electricity, etc. I want to just point out that there's lots in this video of issues and things to think about that you should be writing down and making notes on for the first question there on the worksheet. So,
giving birth to this new level of intellect. I'm Nick Bostrom. I'm a professor at Oxford University, where I run the Future of Humanity Institute, with the unusual mandate of trying to think carefully about the really big picture questions for humanity and the future of Earth originating intelligent life. AI has been a big focus of mine really since my teenage years. It always seemed that if you look around and ask what accounts for why the world is the way it is, our human world, like a lot of it is because we humans have made it so. We have invented all kinds of technologies. And so all these things, whether it's jet planes or art or political systems, have come into the world through the birth canal of the human brain. And that immediately made it plausible to me that if you could change that channel, creating artificial brains, then you would change the thing that is changing the world. I think we have this notion of what's smart and what's dumb, whereas I think there is actually a huge amount of space above us between our level of intelligence and God. And once you go a little bit beyond human, then you get this feedback loop where the brains doing the AI research will become AIs themselves. Therefore, I think there is a significant chance that we'll have an intelligence explosion. So that within a short period of time, we go from something that was only moderately affecting the world to something that completely transforms the world. All the things that we could imagine human intelligence being useful for, which is pretty much everything, artificial intelligence could be useful for as well if it just became, more advanced. Whether it's like diseases or pollution or poverty, we would have vastly better tools for dealing with. If you had super intelligence, you could help develop better clean energy technologies or medicines. So it does look to me like all the plausible paths to a really great future involve the development of machine superintelligence at some point. There are, I think, existential risks connected with the transition to the machine intelligence era. The most obvious being the possibility of unaligned superintelligence that then overwrites the Earth human civilization with its own value structures. Another big class of failures would be if this technology were used for destructive purposes. Then I think there is a third dimension that has received less attention so far, which is how good the outcome is for the AIs themselves. If we're going to construct digital minds that are maybe conscious or have moral status of various degrees, then how can we ensure that they are treated well? If you think about it, most of us would acknowledge that various non-human animals have degrees of moral status, even something as simple as a humble lab mouse. At that point, it becomes an active question of whether we have obligations to the AIs, not just make sure we don't misuse AIs against one another or protect ourselves from the AI, but also make sure that we do what we ought to do with respect to the AIs. And if we succeed at that and things go well, then you could imagine living lives way beyond anything that is possible now. This is why there has been so much interest in AI in recent years, because it does look like it could be this fulcrum on which the future depends. So on the one hand, it does look from this kind of slightly abstract point of view that we might develop, in the not too distant future, greater than human AI, and it would change everything. On the other hand, it seems kind of rather incredible that this world that we've known for our whole lives, that there would be a plausible scenario in which that changes radically in our lifetime. And we become, I don't know, some sort of semi-immortal uploaded creatures with Jupiter-sized minds. Like, to actually take that seriously, like, it seems to go against day-to-day lived experience. So keeping both of those in mind creates this kind of interesting tension between two different ways of thinking about the world. I think rather than just eliminate one of them, just keep them both there and struggle with that tension.
All right. Any comments on that one? Everyone quiet. Just everyday stuff. Yeah. So there's a bunch of things I want to point out from that video. The first is Nick Bostrom has talked in both videos. He used this same term, intelligence explosion. This idea of the power of these things getting exponentially faster, like an explosion, and just unstoppable as they get more and more powerful, more and more intelligent, way past our abilities. Well, that's already happening right now. We're already there, watching it happen before our eyes. This intelligence explosion is going on right now. He talked about three things that were kind of potential problems. One of them was the fact that these things could be used for destructive things, like, for weapons, etc. But when in the whole history of humanity has any new technology not been used for weapons? Every time we invent a new technology, if it's suitable for weapons, we use it for weapons. So an AI is already being massively employed on the battlefield, and we will look at that more in future classes. But so, the negative side is definitely there for that. The other two things he talked about are both related to some form of machine consciousness. That will these machines have their own value system was one of them. And the other was, will we have a moral obligation to treat them well? Because even a lab mouse has some rights. If it has more intelligence and ability and some form of consciousness more than a lab mouse, can we say, do we have to give it rights, some sort of rights? And the final thing was towards the end. where we're talking about the future of this technology, and we're hitting a point where he was saying the future of the whole of humanity now depends on this technology. There is no other technology that is going to be as important as this. I mean, argue with me if you want. Feel free to, if you think there's some other technology or something else that's more important, but nothing else is going to change our society in the way this is. And as you said, we could have incredible changes in our society and incredible new technology, given this progression rate that is getting faster and faster every month. We are going to see incredible changes in our lifetime. Well, in your lifetimes, I'm too old to probably see most of them, but you're going to see them. You're going to see incredible changes. One of the things about these changes is it's as Nick said, Nick Bostrom said towards the end, we go about our day-to-day lives, we live our lives, and we don't think about these changes that are going on around us because we're busy living our lives. But we don't appreciate that, every month decades of progress are being made. And that, these scientific AIs are doubling their capabilities every 5 months. And we just don't really see that because we're not there. We're not sitting watching it every day. We're just going on living our lives, and especially the politicians and everyone else, people aren't noticing what is happening right now. Any other comments? All right.
We're able to, um, like when you said basically like, we have to foster like our obligation to AI. How do you think that would work?
Oh, how do we foster our obligations to AI? How would that work? I have no idea. I have no idea. Because we don't know what form its consciousness will take. That's the fundamental question. Until you know whether it has we will always treat it like a subservient machine until we recognize it having some form of consciousness. Like a mouse has some form of consciousness, yeah? So we give a mouse some kind of animal rights. We wouldn't really do that to a machine until we accept that it has, which is why we studied the consciousness bit here. So, and once we do, we have to decide where it is on that scale of how we treat other things.
I think it would end up becoming like a mouse or something in that sense.
If you look at the quote, uh, if you look at the quote, you're saying, would we end up becoming like the mouse compared to the robots? If you look at the quote at the very start of that Brightspace page, but it's up at the top there. It's from Claude Shannon, who invented some of the first AI systems back in the 60s. He invented the first checkers machine, and he said, I envision a time when we will be to robots what dogs are to humans, loyal and slightly confused. And people have talked about this idea for years. It's the thing of science fiction all the time. But as you said, the AI is already, by most measures, more intelligent than we are. So if we do at some point have to give them some sort of moral standing, how do we put them on that scale if they are better than us? It could shatter our society. It could change our society totally. And again, this is what I'm saying. People aren't considering this because the speed of development is so fast that this could happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But even so, it's still, even if it takes 20 years, it's still gonna completely change our society. Matt, you had something.
It's one of two things, but if we usually scale like consciousness with intelligence, like
With what, sorry?
we scale consciousness with intelligence. So
Yeah.
the reason the mouse has less rights is because it's less intelligent, less conscious. So does that mean like by our own thing, we would have to give the AI more rights than us? You know?
Yeah. So I'll just repeat that for the people online because they don't always hear. So Mike was saying um, we often scale consciousness with intelligence, which is why a mouse has less rights because it's less intelligent. So if we are saying AI is more intelligent, then we probably will end up scaling its consciousness along with that. And I don't disagree with that. But, yeah.
The other thing too is like this is like happening like right now. Like this is it's not like ridiculous science fiction, whatever. But like when you try to talk to people about this, they look at you like you're a psychopath. They're like, "What are you saying?" It's like it's right here. You know?
Oh, you're talking about like so Mike's saying that we can see this happening to right now every day, and but when you talk to people, they look at you like you're a psychopath. This is my life, man. This is why I started this course, and I was doing this 10 years ago, telling people what was coming, and even less people believe me then, but. Every year it gets like, I told you, it doesn't, standing here saying, I told you so, doesn't help. You can see what's happening. And it's, you may consider, for example, your main concerns as a student at the moment may be, oh, the job market's difficult right now because of the tech industry. But in 10 years, 15 years, there may be no job market. There may be nothing. Um, the whole of society may have changed so much, in 10, 15 years to be completely unrecognizable that, again, it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, but something is, you know, the changes are coming and we're not ready for them. So I agree with you. I've been evangelizing. As I said, I feel like Cassandra, the Greek prophet, who always tells people what's happening, what's going to happen, but no one believes them. And I hate to say it, but most of the things I was teaching 10 years ago about the job market and what's going to happen and all that has come true, with the AI systems. And, it doesn't make me happy, that I was telling people about this 10 years ago. But yeah. So, we're going to look at specific instances. What we're going to look at in this module next, we're going to look at a few distinct issues, which are, let me show you. So the things we need to talk about for AGI and superintelligence are self-replication, which is when you hit a point where the machines are building themselves, or the machines are building the next generation of themselves, then that exponential curve gets even faster. Yeah. So this is what Nick was talking about with the intelligence explosion. He's specifically talking about what we call self-replication, where you hit a point where an artificial intelligence is building the next level of artificial intelligence. And what I will be showing you in that module, which we will study next week on Tuesday, is that we're already there. The AIs are already building the next level of AI. And what is happening is we're having less and less input into it as humans, and I'll show you exactly where we are with that right now, because that's a key function of this idea of the intelligence explosion is the machines have to be able to cope with themselves. Then we have this thing of artificial general intelligence, which is very much about us as humans being so the human chauvinists. We always have to compare the machines to us. Yeah, it's always about how they perform relative to us. And the idea is when we hit AGI, that's when the machine has become as good as us. The machine's already better than us at most tasks. Yeah. The interesting thing is the tasks it's not good at are tasks that are involved in the environment. So it may know everything about theoretical physics that I don't know, but it can't fry an egg for my breakfast. Yeah. So the things that we do every day. So remember that definition of intelligence that related to embodiment and environment, but with factories producing robots every few minutes, I don't think it will be long before we have that. And then we're going to finish by talking about this point they called the singularity. Does anyone know what the singularity is before we get there? The singularity is named after a thing from astrophysics, where in a black hole, you have something called the Schwarzschild radius around a black hole. Once you go past that Schwarzschild's radius, you can never get back because the gravitational pull is too much. And you've reached what they call, when you get into the black hole, a point called the singularity where the laws of physics stop working. Yeah? And so the technological singularity is where we reach a point where our laws and the things, the whole of human society, the way we run, stops working. Because technology advances so fast that humans aren't important anymore and our kind of things stop working. We call that the technological singularity. And we're racing towards it. And we don't know exactly what it will be or what form it will take, but we'll talk about the singularity. Okay. Another cheery way to start a Thursday. Like I said, my best comment last year was a student who said, every class with you, I have a sense of existential dread, but I have to keep coming to see what's going to happen. All right. So yeah, we'll talk about self-replicating machines next week and maybe start talking about AGI as well. Okay. All right, folks. Oh, by the way, just before you go, this worksheet, okay? So I showed you the first two questions, three questions on the back. Question 3 is about self-replicating machines. I'll talk about that one on Tuesday. Question 4, I want you to pick your most important issue off the first page, the one you ranked at the top, and just for fun, get AI to build a meme or an infographic about it. Yeah? Build something and put it in there. And then a bit of reflection as always. So you can do almost all of this worksheet apart from this self-reflection, but you might want to wait because you may include the self-replication as an issue in your list. Okay. All good. I haven't put this one online. I'll give you 2 weeks to do it. So, okay. See you all on Tuesday.